Two big unknowns loom over the 2022 housing market, and we're going to dive into both of them. This year was an absolute nightmare for would-be homebuyers. Even if they could find a home within their budget, no easy task as inventory hit a 40-year low this year. There's a good chance that they lost it in a frenzied bidding war. Now that's not an exaggeration. At one point this spring, a staggering 74% of US home listings were getting multiple offers. But there might be a tiny bit of good news for 2022 house hunters. The real estate industry consensus is that the 2022 housing market will see less crazy price hikes in the housing market. Every 2022 housing forecast model shows price growth, which soared a record 19.9% between August 2020 and August 2021, not going up as fast next year. Already, the housing market is starting to see some of that cooling. Look no further than the bidding wars. As of September, 59% of homes are getting multiple offers, or a 15% point drop from April. However, while real estate industry insiders say we're transitioning into a period where price growth isn't as astronomical, there's no consensus on what that new rate of 2022 price growth will look like. Indeed, when it comes to the 2022 housing market, the outlooks are all over the place. On the high end, there's Zillow, which is forecasting 13.6% price growth in the coming 12 months. And Goldman Sachs, which predicted a 16% bump by the end of 2022. Fannie Mae is less bullish, saying prices will climb 7.9% in 2022. Meanwhile, CoreLogic is pretty bearish and forecasting just a 1.9% price jump over the coming 12 months. If Zillow or Goldman Sachs are right, that would mean the 2022 housing market would still be among the hottest years on record. If CoreLogic's forecast turns into reality, then we would be headed for the slowest period for price growth since 2012. These wide-ranging forecasts prompt the question, why is there so much uncertainty when it comes to the 2022 housing market? On paper, the fundamentals underpinning the market, demand outpacing supply, remain strong headed into 2022. However, industry insiders say two big unknowns make it hard to pinpoint just how big that demand and supply mismatch will be next year. Now let's review one of those right now. Heading into 2021, the Federal Reserve predicted that inflation would remain relatively tame and that it would top out at 1.8% this year. Boy, were they wrong. At its latest reading for the month of October, the Consumer Price Index came in at 6.2%, the highest rate of inflation since 1990. That's barely below the 7.1% average inflation rate notched during the 1970s, a decade notorious for runaway inflation. Higher than expected inflation makes it all the more likely that the Federal Reserve would raise the federal funds rate, something it has kept near zero during the pandemic in an effort to encourage more economic activity. But if the Federal Reserve does raise interest rates, it would also see the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate, currently at 2.98%, rise. Of course, upped mortgage rates directly translate into higher monthly payments, which would lock some buyers out of the market altogether. If something changes in the mortgage rate environment, that could throw massive wrenches in everything. Mortgage rates are a bit of an unknown, and they have a direct relation with activity in the housing market. Fannie Mae foresees the average 30-year rate climbing to 3.4% by the end of next year. Meanwhile, the Mortgage Bankers Association is forecasting that the mortgage rate will climb to 4% by the end of 2022 and to 4.4% by the end of 2023. Those forecasted rate increases are bigger than they might look. For instance, say a buyer put down 20% on a $500,000 home. If they locked in the current average 30-year rate, 2.98%, they would have a monthly payment, excluding taxes and insurance, of $1,682. But if the mortgage rate is 3.4%, it pushes the monthly payment to $1,774. At the 4% rate level forecasted by the Mortgage Bankers Association, that payment spikes all the way up to $1,910, or an additional $82,000 over the course of the 30-year mortgage. Now let's look at the second unknown for the 2022 housing market. And that is, will supply chain shortages hold back home builders in 2022 like they did in 2021? Lumber, which was up 300% this spring above its pre-pandemic price, was arguably the canary in the coal mine for the material shortages and supply chain issues that are plaguing the economy. Ultimately, framing lumber prices started to crash back in May as the do-it-yourselfers simply balked at the exorbitant prices. That price correction obviously brought down the prices of new homes, right? Not even close. Over the past 4 months alone, new home prices are up another 5%. So what's going on? While the wood shortage has eased, the price of almost every other building component has shot up. Concrete, windows, paint, you name it, the prices are all up on these other materials. Lumber has come down. We have more lumber, but that does not mean we have more appliances or cabinets. Not to mention, the Great Resignation has hit the construction industry extremely hard. Labor shortages in the construction market is starting to rear its ugly head again. And there are a lot more conversations about contractors not being able to find reliable construction workers. New home contractors are having an extremely hard time getting their construction projects done on time. There's just not enough labor heading into the 2022 housing market. Even the correction in lumber market is hardly a silver lining. After peaking at $1,515 per thousand board feet this spring, lumber prices crashed to $389 by mid-August as DIY buyers sat on the sidelines. But now those buyers are rushing back, helping to send the prices back to $575. Now that might seem cheap compared with the top of the lumber bubble. However, it's still well above the $375 price builders were paying heading into 2022. What's more troubling than the lack of material or supply chain relief is the fact that industry insiders don't have any idea of when or how inflationary spikes and labor shortages will get resolved. Unlike with mortgage rates, which threaten to decelerate prices if they're up too fast, home building cutbacks threaten to send prices higher. It boils down to the fact that the US is underbuilt by 4 million homes, as the largest chunk of millennials are hitting their peak first-time home buying years. If builders are forced to scale back, it could mean even fewer homes for sale in an already historically tight and competitive housing market. So that's it for this video. If you've liked it, please hit the thumbs up below and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.